Because after Superman, you simply just have to do Batman. So here we go. Look at all these pieces. So this is the Batman from Zez Studios. Shout out to them. And look at all the little, we got bombs here. We've got batarangs. We got a grappling hook that actually kind of, this is kind of cool. Actually kind of dangles. That's kind of cool. We got little Joker masks and gargoyles and clocks. I mean, props to them for all of this like accessory and kind of theming stuff. So I'm going to try to test fit some of this, do a lot of sanding to make sure it all puts together, and we'll get everything primed. All right, so coming in, start on the base work here as I'm waiting for some other paints to come in that I need. And just using this folk art cheap brown, which I really like for like bases. That's a good brand for like cheap acrylic paint that you can get at the craft store. So we're using that, and then another gray to just dry brush over the rocks, because it all kind of has just kind of like a muddy rock base. So I thought it looked pretty good. All right, so I'm just going to catch up on everything, since everything I tried to record from my new setup here captured nothing. So what we were working on is we worked on the base here, which we started with this nice brown here of just a cheap folk art paint, and then dry brush some gray over it to make it look like kind of muddy and rocky. And then we did that same technique just over our primered gargoyles, and we did the same on all the pieces of the clock tower. And then for these parts of the tower, we came over with like a dark gunmetal gray, and then a bronze over top of that to give it kind of this metallic metal with also a little bit of like oxidization / rusting. So that is like the top of the tower. So everything pretty much with the base and the clock tower is done, as I'm still waiting on the gray I'm going to use for Batman himself. So he all has to kind of wait. But I think we got everything to kind of put the base together. All right, so we're doing some gluing here. I kind of wish I would have got I got the wrong Gorilla Glue. I got the gel kind, which does okay, but you just have to hold it longer. So we just got to put a nice little vice grip on this thing, make sure it's all gets held, and we're going to glue the tower pieces together. And next, working on some of these gargoyles, you'll notice there is a bunch of graffiti from the Joker and his goons all over the base of this model. So we're going to do those in like a fluorescent color, but to make those really pop, we're going to put some base white down. So you'll see here, you can kind of see within the mold, there's a bunch of like ha-has and smiley faces and just little markings. So we're going to go through with this white and outline all of those first, and then we'll come back in later and get them with a more fluorescent color. Next, we're getting started with the boots, and you'll see they're already kind of primered in this primer / paint black. But we're going to go ahead and take and just do this contrast black paint from Games Workshop, which is the, I believe it is the obsidian black or something like that. I don't know why it's escaping me right now. But the reason I like this black is it has a little bit of like a bluish tint to it. And since it is a contrast paint, which is ridiculously thick, it goes over this black and gives a nice just coat, but also all the kind of leather detail within the mold, it maintains that and makes it look really good. Next, starting on the belt, and I had an idea here. I wasn't sure how to really do it. With Batman is so kind of gritty, you don't know how vibrant you want him to be, if you want him to be a little bit dark. So I went with 3 different sections here on the back. The back is usually covered up by the cape, so I wasn't too worried about how it was going to look. But you see the first section there I just went directly yellow over black. The one off to the right here, I'm going to lay a pretty heavy coat of white, just like a base coat of white. And then on the left one, I'm just going to do a dry brush of white, so a real light white dry brush. So we've got a just base over black, a over white base, and then a dry brush base. So we're going to come back in now with the yellows. I'm just going to compare them, see which one we like better. Again, this is on the back of the model. You're not going to really see it. The cape's going to cover it, so I figured this would be a good opportunity and chance. We're going to test it out and see. And I can already kind of tell it right here. It just looks better over the white. Yellow is usually that case. But with this model being so dark and gritty, I didn't really know if it would look too cartoonish and poppy. But no, it definitely needs to go over a solid white base. So now I'm just going to go in, and we've made that decision, and put a nice white base over the rest of the belt that you are going to see. And now we're coming in with that yellow, and we're just going to cover all the sections. And it actually turned out kind of good. I couldn't really get in a lot of the kind of nooks and crannies down the middle of some of those pouches, so you can see some of the black still coming through, but I think it added a little bit of depth to it, so it kind of worked out. You can really see the difference here from those other demos that we did. So we're going to glob a few more coats on there. They're still not going to look perfect compared to the other stuff, but again, it'll be on the back, so it should be fine. Next, we got all the pieces you can see that came with this model. I got batarangs, I've got grappling hooks and lines, I've got bombs. So we're just going to start with this gunmetal gray and just do like a dry brush over the black. It's always a good look. Whenever you can just dry brush like gunmetal or aluminum or bronze over black, it always looks good. It's such an easy technique to do. It looks great on accessories. So we're just going to throw a layer down on all these cables, and then also do the same with the batarangs and some of the metal pieces. Here's the end of the grappling hook, so we're going to also throw the dry brush gunmetal on that, and really give it that kind of Batman metal look. Next, using this ivory white, we're just going to go over and put a base layer on the Joker mask. Again, since the idea being this is kind of grimied up, you know, the Joker masks already look kind of rough, and then if you imagine this is laying at the foot of the base, it's probably even rougher. So not super wanting it to be kind of it doesn't need to be the cleanest paint job, it doesn't need to be the whitest white, so we're throwing in kind of like an off ivory. And then I started painting the bombs here in a red, and I realized that if you watch the Superman video, we just bought this Fusion Krylon red spray paint. So decided to just go ahead and throw those spray on those, make it easy. Come back over with some black on some of the details. And you can see here I'm using a bronze or a gold to kind of paint the bell part of the alarm clocks. And then we did silver around the edges. And then the faces of the clocks we're going to do in white. Kind of, I'll be honest, I need to go back maybe and work a little bit more on these. I think I was just so full transparency. The AC's been out at my house this week, so it's really hot. I was just trying to, I thought maybe doing the model would kind of keep my mind busy, but I got a little lazy on these bombs and just didn't really. I should have come back and done an coat on a lot of this because it looks pretty bad, but I can always come back and easily touch those up later. Throwing another layer on the mask just because we did go right over black, so just giving it a nice coat to kind of fill it out. And now we're coming in with this green plasma from Army Painter. That's like an effect color. We've used it, if you watch the Titus video, we used it for like the Tyranid blood. So we're going to go over with that, over these white areas for some of them, and give it that fluorescent green kind of graffiti pop that you know with the Joker. And now we're going to come in with some red, some like fluorescent red to do the other sections just to make it not all one color. So the why so serious is we're going to do in red, the smile here we're going to do in red, and just kind of fill out any of the other white parts just to give it a little bit different than the greens. And what good is a clock if he doesn't have hands on it to tell the time? You got to know how much time you got left when his bomb goes off. So we're just going to put those on there. And because you also have to know if you're going to cut the red wire or the blue wire, we're going to do some of the wires in blue just to make Batman's job a little bit harder. He's going to make a last second decision and snip the right wire. And this part right here did do freehand. There's no molds on the mask for kind of like the lines and stuff, but it's pretty easy. Really just give him eyebrows, put some circles on his cheeks, give him kind of like a goatee of blue. Not too hard. And again, I mean, the masks are kind of crude to begin with, so it doesn't need to be perfect. And then we're going to come in with our red again and give him a nice big red nose. That's pretty much done on the mask there. Next, we're going to use some of our gloss varnish to just put over the faces of the clocks so it looks like there's some glass, just so they shine and shimmer a little bit more than the rest of the model. And we're going to take this opportunity to go ahead and just try to get the base completed. At this point, I'm waiting on the gray to show up. I had to order a uniform gray for Batman's body, so thought it'd be a good chance to just go ahead and get the base completely done, and then we'll start on the body. And there we are putting the spire on, which is just again kind of like a combination of the brushed gunmetal and a brushed bronze over the top of the metal, just to give it that kind of weathered metal look. And if I could do one thing different, I would have put the clock faces on the model before I put it on the base, because it was kind of hard to kind of wedge them in there and get them in there, but we got it. And there you go. There's the base all ready. And now we can get started on Batman. So the uniform gray finally came in, so we're going to go ahead and throw a layer on the legs. It It went on really clean, didn't show any brush marks, but it did go on a little light, so I had to do about 2.5 coats, 2 full coats, and then a few other areas I had to go back over and just make sure I really got them, because a lot of that black was shining through. Now starting on the chest, and again, same thing, just really throwing this on there. As you've heard me mention before, I am in need of a new airbrush, but luckily thought Batman would be an easy one to do brush only because it is just a basic few colors and a lot of black, so thought it'd be an easier one to do without needing an airbrush. Next, we're going to start on the face while we're waiting for all those to start. And using our flesh set, we're going to start with the base flesh, which does look really dark, but that's because it is the base. And we're going to be slowly highlighting and lightening it up as we put more on. Being Batman, we don't mind if it's a little dark. He shouldn't have too much pinkish in him. He is the Dark Knight, so it kind of, you know, he spends all day inside and all night on the streets. So if he's a little paler or not quite as you know, rosy cheeked, that's perfectly fine. But while we're waiting for that first one to look, first layer to dry, we're putting that gunmetal again, brushed gunmetal, airbrushed or dry brushed over his Gatling gun, and I'm just taking the white. There are a few areas where like some color shines through, like a light or something. So we're just putting down base white. Anytime you're going to do like a reds or a white or yellow or something like that, you want to start with a base. So now going to the medium flesh. So we're putting down the medium over the base and just slowly lightening it up as we bring it up. And that looks pretty good, honestly. I think that second layer would work, but I do need a little bit of life in it. Like I know I said that it shouldn't be too pink, but it looks kind of dead. It just need to bring a little bit of flushed color to it. So we're gonna probably do one more layer on top of this. While waiting for that to dry though, now I'm gonna come back in with the yellow. It is always nice when you get a few things that you're working on that you can just sit one down and dry, work on something else, and then go back to it. Just get like a nice little rhythm going, not having to sit around waiting for things to dry. Now we're going right back in, and I did a little mix here of the highlight and the like pinkish flesh, just to try to neutralize a little bit. And I'm just going directly over everything. And I think it turned out pretty good. It made it a little bit paler, but also added a little bit more color to it. And so I think it worked out pretty good. That's the last area. I do come back and I kind of messed that up because I started painting before it was dry all the way. And now I'm coming in with one of the darker shades to use on the lips. I think it's the same one that I mixed in with the highlight color. So just give it a little bit of a different color. Again, doing the same thing we did on the boots, that contrast black from Games Workshop on the Bat logo. So it matches the boots and arms and everything with that kind of, you can still see there's a lot of detail in the Bat symbol again. It's got that kind of leatherish look, so we want to maintain all that, so this contrast paint works perfect for that. Next, this model is tore up. There are all over his arms and legs. There are tears in his suit where his skin is showing through. So this point, I'm just using that mix I made of the highlight and the flesh tone, and just going straight over it. Since it is small areas, it doesn't really matter as much as his full face. So just putting that in the gaps. It was kind of tricky because the tears are really awesome in the model, but there's thin layers of fabric that going over it. So just making sure that I'm not painting flesh over what's supposed to be like a fabric piece was a little tricky, but just needed to kind of lock in and pay attention as I was doing it and just try to not put too much paint on my brush and just let it kind of fall in those areas. I think this is the last little one on his other arm. Again, just doing a little touch up where I messed up on the face. Sometimes if you pull a brush over a piece that isn't kind of quite dry and it kind of pulls a clump up, I just had to fix that. And now doing it again, same thing, doing that contrast black over the cowl. You can see how it goes on kind of shiny, but it does dry pretty flat. But it does help to see the area, especially when you're putting black over black. I could easily tell the parts I hadn't covered yet, which made it easy to just throw this on. It dries so clean, it's just a nice little buffer over that primer color. It doesn't look totally different, but you can just tell when primer black is sitting on something, so it just helped. And now place your bets if I can do the eyes in one go. Again, the reason you do a Batman statue is so you could just have to do white eyes, and I still managed to mess it up here. You can see where I was kind of finicking with it. I just couldn't get a good angle to come at for the I guess that's his right eye. And I totally missed it, went a little bit below in the mold. Again, working on black, it was kind of hard to see where the eye part and where the lid was in the mold. I just missed it, but came back in with some black and just kind of cleaned it up. We got there eventually, but didn't nail it the first time. For whatever reason, the other eye, I just can't get the right approach angle. But eventually we got there. Now begin the process of kind of piecing them together, putting the legs on here just to get an idea how it's going to fit. I do have, I want to come in with some Nightshade, which is kind of like a bluish black contrast paint, and I think would work really good for shading. So I'm just trying to get him in position before I glue them all together. I am kind of putting a little tacky glue on the where his grappling hook there, the cable meets the gun. And next I got this technical from Vallejo, which is like a blood. And we're using the technique of spraying it through the air gun to kind of make it look like a splatter. And here's where I'm using that Nightshade bluish tint to just shade in some of the areas. And with that, I think we have it done. This was a fun one. It was I want to say easy, but just was kind of a quick one. Not a ton of, and we got to do some fun detail work and all the blood and like the shading, the colors and everything. So fun model. Props to Zed Studios for a great, easy put together and just a really cool model. I love this version of Batman. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. Please like, subscribe, and catch you in the next one.